Tyjae Spears is out, the Raiders running backs are out and already disgraceful, and Isaiah Pacheco is also out. This is why we wait till the end of the week to go through every single matchup to find the must-start and sit running backs. And I'm the only fantasy YouTuber working on a Saturday to get you this type of content, so please go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first matchup, the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. Joe Mixon is obviously a must-start. This guy has been absolutely crushing everybody. He's averaging the most fantasy points per game at the running back position, and the Titans are not a bad matchup. You play Joe Mixon, and you don't think twice about it, obviously. I don't think I need to tell you that. And then with Tony Pollard, if it was a better matchup, I would actually consider him a must-start. Tony Pollard, without Tyjae Spears this year, been pretty good in fantasy. This is a tough matchup, man. The Texans are brutal versus running backs and just on defensively in general. So I don't think that Tony Pollard is a must-start because this offense is atrocious and the matchup stinks. So I do think that Tony Pollard, walk lightly, tread lightly on this one, but I think that he's definitely a higher end flex option for sure this week. And then obviously Tyjae Spears is out, and any running back, Dario Gumbawale or Dameon Pierce, is totally irrelevant when Joe Mixon is dominating like he has been. The Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears here. And listen, I think that all these four running backs, every one of them, is playable in their own right. You've got DeAndre Swift, who's already injured right now. He's questionable heading into this game. Make sure to monitor this one throughout the day. DeAndre Swift, as of this time, he's my favorite option right now. Minnesota's defense is already tough against running backs, but this matchup, obviously last week, if you didn't see, Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift almost split opportunities. So that's why Roschon is still a playable option, and he's a goal line running back too. So I think that both of them are playable. Aaron Jones, the reason I prefer DeAndre Swift over him is because Aaron Jones doesn't look healthy. That guy does not look the same as he did the first 4-5 weeks of the season. It just is not the same that we've been seeing with Aaron Jones lately. I think he's unhealthy. I think there's a reason Cam Akers almost split opportunities with him last week. And I think that's why Cam Akers is also playable. To be clear, none of these matchups are good for any of them. I don't think any of them are must start. And I do think that all four of these running backs are absolutely playable this week. The Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders this week. Brian Robinson Jr., I called him a must start. I meant it. Brian Robinson Jr. is going to carve the Dallas Cowboys. First of all, the main concern I've had with Brian Robinson Jr. over the last month or so is that his snap count percentage has been down since the first reported injury that he had after week 4. Well, what happened last week after he missed 2 games is he played another, 50 to 60% of the snaps. That's where we're getting in the right direction here, and the Cowboys matchup is so awesome. The Cowboys defense is an utter disaster. It's a disgraceful defense, and I just think that Brian Robinson Jr., no way he doesn't pop and get 2 touchdowns or a touchdown at least in this game. Rico Dowdle, nothing more than honestly a mid-end flex option, kind of in the same tier with Austin Eckler. I think Rico Dowdle, he's been the best running back in Dallas for sure. The Commanders are beatable, but this offense has no direction other than CeeDee Lamb. He got pulled last week for Deuce Vaughn. That's why Deuce Vaughn's name's featured. I'm not playing Deuce Vaughn. I would play Rico Dowdle still, because again, he's been the best running back in this backfield. But at the same time, this Cowboys offense is a mess. Jerry Jones has screwed up this entire team, and Mike McCarthy is a dead man walking. So I just don't think, I can't rely on anybody in this offense outside of CeeDee Lamb. And Austin Eckler, as I just said, I think he's basically in the same tier. There's the potential that he gets targets in this game, and that does raise his upside. But ultimately, with Brian Robinson, he doesn't see more than 5 carries. So his upside is low. Maybe his floor is okay because of receptions, but ultimately not very good as far as who I would end up playing. I would definitely play Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. You'd have to sell me really hard on that one. The New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins here. Devon Achane obviously is fired up. You cannot ever sit Devon Achane. This guy with Tua, his floor alone is 15 points. His ceiling is 30 plus. You do not ever sit Devon Achane. I think Devon Achane is going to feast on the Patriots this weekend. Ramondre Stevenson, I just think that Ramondre is a high-end flex guy. It's never going to be a must-start for me unless the matchup is insane. Reminds me very similarly of how I feel about Tony Pollard. It's not that I don't like Tony Pollard. It's just that I don't think that this is a team that I'm going to rely on ever to be able to get me consistent fantasy upside. Ramondre is on a bad offense, and ultimately, this matchup is okay. I do think Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, is a high-end flex. Now, I want to say this. Raheem Mostert, like, this guy's droppable at this point. I would drop Raheem Mostert if, like, you have any upside on the waiver. This guy's done. It's over. What, he had like 3 carries for -2 yards last week. And Jalen Wright getting more carries, so maybe more playable, but he hasn't been good either. It's Devon Achane or bust out of this Miami backfield. That needs to be noted for sure. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Carolina Panthers this week. Kareem Hunt is obviously must start. The matchup is fantastic, and it was ruled that Isaiah Pacheco will miss this game. So Kareem Hunt is obviously a must-start player against the Panthers defense. He's going to feast in this one. You play him for sure. And then with Chuba Hubbard, I'm not scared about Jonathan Brooks. That's not my problem. I've been saying it all week, and I still get questions every single day about it. I understand the questions, but listen, I'm not worried about Jonathan Brooks. Don't play him. Even if he does play, he's already questionable. He's going to play. The problem is it's not Jonathan Brooks. They're going to start Chuba Hubbard, and he will be the lead back. The problem is the matchup. The matchup is horrible. Kansas City is brutal against running backs in fantasy. So I don't like this matchup. That's the problem I ultimately have with Chuba. Ultimately, still a high-ish to middle-end flex option. That's how I view Chuba Hubbard this week. In future weeks, though, when they take on teams like the Tampa Bay Bucs or the New Orleans Saints, I don't have a problem with this matchup right here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New York Giants this week. I think Tyrone Tracy's a great play this week. I really do. Like, this offense already is going to rely more on the run, I think. And I do think that Tommy Cutlets, I think that there will be more throwing opportunities and reception work for running backs. I read reports of that earlier in the week, and I had already kind of thought about it, and I was like, this guy's probably going to check the ball down a ton. And Tyrone Tracy Jr. is a former receiver, like college receiver. So I think Tyrone Tracy Jr. must start 100% against the Bucs defense. Bucky Irving, I slowly kind of was like, man, I like him better than Rashad this week. I think the matchup's great. The Giants defense, I don't think will have trouble moving the ball and running it down their throat. It could easily be a 15-carry game with 5 yards per carry and a touchdown. I think that's why I prefer Bucky over Rashad. He's the better runner, and Rashad, at this point, what if his reception total goes down a little bit because Mike Evans is back? That's very possible. So that's the one thing I would say about Rachaad White is I do think that with Mike Evans coming back in the fold, there's potential that he loses some volume here through the air. And Devin Singletary, not playing him either. The Detroit Lions at the Indianapolis Colts this week. You play both Detroit running backs. Do we really need to talk about it? Matchup's great. These running backs, it is the best running system in the entire league. Let's just move on and leave it at that. Jonathan Taylor, man. High-end flex, but man, I'm disappointed. Because the fear with Jonathan Taylor before the season was that Anthony Richardson would take goal line work. It happened last week. And Jonathan Taylor was inefficient last week. So if we see another inefficient Jonathan Taylor, he's not getting the goal line work. So what is his upside? He needs to hit big plays because he's also not catching the ball out of the backfield with Anthony Richardson. He has one path to fantasy superstardom. That's massive big runs. And this week against the Lions, I don't like that opportunity. So obviously, I would never say to outright sit Jonathan Taylor, but I'm definitely looking in other directions this week. I don't think this is a good matchup for him to take advantage of. I'm worried, but ultimately, again, I would never tell you to just outright bench a player like Jonathan Taylor when he's healthy and out there. The Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders this week. No must starts because both of these teams, their running back situations are just atrocious. And one of them can actually run the ball. Denver can run the ball. So I think Javonte Williams and Audric Estime are better plays. I prefer Javonte over Audric Estime because I think Javonte has been the best running back in Denver, but Audric Estime can easily lead the backfield in carries this week. It is a Russian roulette offense, and Sean Payton is not honest about who he's playing. So I would just say I think they're both playable. I prefer Javonte a little bit, but I prefer either one of them over Amir Abdullah, which is ironic because Amir Abdullah is going to get the work because Alexander Madison and Zamir White are doubtful in this game. It's all going to be Amir Abdullah. But you know what? They're incapable of running the football. They're inept. Jacoby Myers last week led the team in rushing on 1 carry for 20 yards. He led the team in rushing last week. This offense is disgraceful. Disgraceful. And Antonio Pierce is not a good head coach. So I just think that with this running back group, I don't care if you have one guy who's clearly getting the volume. I don't want it because the matchup is not good, and Amir Abdullah has never been a particularly great player, and he's playing for the Raiders, who are incompetent at running the football. It's a disgrace. The Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks this week. Kenneth Walker, James Conner, you can fire them both up for sure. I think with Kenneth Walker, he's clearly not losing opportunities to Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet has his role every week, but it's like 5 touches. Kenneth Walker against the Arizona Cardinals, okay matchup, but ultimately the guy just knows how to get it done in fantasy. He always gets it done. James Conner, I think that James Conner, the one concern I have is Trey Benson. How many opportunities does he get this week? I ultimately still think James Conner's a must-start. This is a matchup that I like against Seattle Seahawks, and James Conner's been really good. Pretty efficient for the majority of the year. So, Trey Benson, they're coming off the bye week. James Conner's probably fresh. I like James Conner, but I do think that Trey Benson is playable. Like, it's a more frisky play. You got to be feeling frisky for this one, right? It's Saturday, though. You probably feel frisky already. So, I think that it's fine to play Trey Benson because he does have upside if he gets the opportunities. But ultimately, definitely still leaning on James Conner in this offense, so I'm not going too crazy when it comes to Trey Benson. The San Francisco 49ers at the Green Bay Packers. I think that both these running backs are must start. The Christian McCaffrey, honestly, it's the only player in San Francisco that is not affected by Brock Purdy being out. I don't think it does have much of an effect. In fact, it may have a positive effect. I was predicting this week that Christian McCaffrey could have a really big game against the Packers. Maybe not on that train as much anymore because there's not the threat of the pass anymore. But I still think Christian McCaffrey will look pretty good in this game. He's obviously got tons of receiving upside. And I do think that the Packers could provide an avenue where Christian McCaffrey has a 5-yard per carry game. I think it's definitely possible this week. But Josh Jacobs must start too. That guy's on a heater. I don't like this matchup particularly, but Josh Jacobs, it's just time to give him his dues. He has earned it over the last month. He's on a freaking heater right now. He's getting touchdowns. He's really efficient running the ball. I don't think that there's any defense that can stop the Green Bay Packers offense when they're running the ball so efficiently. And their offense is so well run by Matt LaFleur, I don't worry about this matchup particularly much. And then obviously you don't play either handcuff running back. The Philadelphia Eagles at the Los Angeles Rams, our Sunday night game. Saquon, fire him up. No reason to talk about it. Kyren Williams, obviously tons of concerns. Now, Kyren Williams, I'll be honest with you, he's on the border of must start and high-end flex. Sort of in the Jonathan Taylor category. I leaned must start in this game for one reason. I believe that the Los Angeles Rams are going to give a really serious effort. I think they're going to give a ton of effort. Their playoff lives are on the line, man. They got to win this game. Kyren Williams, I do think, will have involvement. The only problem with Kyren lately is that he hasn't been in the end zone. This is not a great matchup, and that's why he's leaning towards high-end flex play. I still think Kyren Williams is a must-start player. And then Kenneth Walker, like Corum, obviously you don't play them. And then also in this matchup, you have Matt Stafford's beautiful projection on underdog, which is 0.5 total yards. So if you're a new customer, you hit the higher on the sweat-free pick, you're winning free money basically. So if you want to take advantage of it, go down there in the comments and grab the link that's there and use code FFN to sign up for underdog. They will match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you hit the higher on the sweat-free pick for Matt Stafford this week. And then our Monday night matchup, the Baltimore Ravens at the Los Angeles Chargers. I think Derrick Henry is a must start. There's no reason to talk about it. Even though the Chargers are tough against the run, he's had a little bit of a down stretch because he's been playing better running teams. The only thing I'll say about Henry is that he definitely is more game script dependent. There will be some games where he gets taken out a little bit, but you can guarantee a rushing touchdown. So it kind of goes from him having the massive Derrick Henry ceiling that we know he has to where like he kind of goes to like a David Montgomery floor. You always know he's going to get in the end zone and he'll be efficient enough and have enough volume to give you 15 to 16 fantasy points. I think this is probably more of the 15 to 20 point game for Derrick Henry. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, I think they're both playable. This is a revenge game for both of them. They're both former Ravens here, and Gus Edwards has had his opportunities here. This is probably the only time I'll say Gus Edwards is flexible, unless he starts getting a consistent 10 carries per game. But last week he had 5 carries. J.K. Dobbins is handling the backfield still. But I think personally, J.K. Dobbins is a high-end flex because I believe J.K. will get targets in this game. I believe that because the Ravens are definitely so bad against the pass. So I think that J.K. does have better opportunities in this one than some people think because the Ravens are stout against the run. I think that J.K. is going to be fine. He's definitely the better flex option than Gus Edwards, but I do think that Gus is a low-end option that you could take if you're really desperate. Justice Hill is questionable, may not play in this game. So remember the name, Keaton Mitchell. Last year, had some really big performances. Actually became a really key player in fantasy down the stretch. If you're new to fantasy football and don't know Keaton Mitchell, it's a name to watch out for if Justice Hill does not play in this game. So let me know how your lineup looks this week. And if you want to see where all these running backs ended up in my top 30 this week, click on this video right here.